When I was a kid, I rarely got new games. I assume that's the case for many people. Games were expensive, and my allowance was very small, so stretching every dollar counted a lot. I would frequent places like Goodwill, and I would try to shop sales as much as I could. This would lead me to pick up many shovelware titles with good cover art because I didn't know any better. Animal Boxing was one of those titles. I very distinctly remember fishing this one out of the $10 bin at Toys R Us. It was mixed in with many licensed games, like Bratz and Disney Princess and whatever, but this one didn't look too bad. With appealing box art and a title that really tells you everything you need to know, I was hoping Animal Boxing would be a game that was worthwhile. If a game like Punch-Out can make an interesting game with boxers' nationalities, just think of what they can do with animals, from biting to scratching to clawing to flying to burrowing underground. It could have been a very, very cool game. I remember playing this one on and off as a kid. Since I wanted to beat every single game I owned, I don't think I ever got very far in this one until, somewhat recently. There might be a reason for that, but let's take a look.
Let's see what we can learn from the box itself. The front of the box is very appealing, and we can see the mark of the beast, or in other words, the publisher, Destineer. I feel like I've seen Destineer's logo on a bunch of games for both the DS and the Wii. I very specifically remember having this one World War II Ace Combat game, but it seems like they started as a publisher for games on the Mac. Hell, the founder, Peter Tamate, and I hope I pronounced that right, was a co-founder of Bungie, meaning they got to publish Halo and even a couple of Age of Empires games. Neither Wikipedia nor the company's website even mentions this game, which might be an omen. Okay, let's venture onto the back. Woo! DS Rumble Pack support. You don't see that on many DS games. I'm still looking for a DS Rumble Pack, so unfortunately I can't test this one myself, but maybe one day I will. Speaking of things I couldn't try, wireless multi-card play. I imagine this could be fun, I just didn't know anyone else who owned this game, either as a kid or even nowadays, unfortunately, so I'll be skipping that too. Skipping all this reading stuff, it's boring and it's mostly for nerds anyway. And there we go, the developer, Gamic Entertainment. Now that's a name I'm not even close to familiar with. Doing a little digging, they're a Spain-based company with only a handful of games under their belt, mostly for the DS and Wii. They were only around for a short amount of time, from 2007 to 2011. Let's take a look at their company website. Okay. I see. Gamic Entertainment had a company within it called Gamic Studios, and Gamic Studios eventually branched off to become a Coney Studios, which would explain the dead website. Let's check a Coney Studios website instead. It seems they were proud of Animal Boxing, being one of the only games on their website. However, it looks like the company has gone quiet. The site hasn't been updated since 2014. But checking their Twitter, oh shoot, they just released a game. Maybe a video for another time, but getting back on topic here, Animal Boxing.
Oh, how do I stall for time? Fun fact, this is the first game I ever tried to do a review on. I recorded and edited the whole thing using my iPad and iMovie. I wish for your sake that I still had that footage, but unfortunately it's lost to time. All this to say, I've really wanted to do this review for a very long time.
I've been delaying it long enough. It's finally time to check out Animal Boxing on the Nintendo DS. I will finally start playing and... Wait, turn your DS to play? What does that mean? It's all upside down? Man, I wish reading was cool and not for nerds. If you take a look at the part of the box that I skipped when I was looking at the box, you'd clearly see that the game is played upside down. They do have one thing right, you'll definitely flip for Animal Boxing. Holding your DS like this isn't the worst per se, but you can see that the game doesn't really benefit from having this. If anything, you lose a couple buttons that would normally be accessible, such as the R and L buttons. You could tell that the console wasn't really designed to be held like this, so it is extremely awkward. The problem is exaggerated on bigger consoles, much like the 3DS XL and even the 2DS. Okay, getting back on track here again. I really like this intro. It's really cute, and the art style's really nice, and the music accompanying it is kind of whimsical, much like the concept of the game itself. You don't really need a story for a game like this, but it's nice that it's here. The art style doesn't really come back until the end, and for what it is, I do really appreciate it. And oh man, that title screen music. It's perfect for a boxing game, and it really matches the vibe of a boxing game. I have no other real way to describe it.
I'll be honest with you, outside of those 2 music tracks, I didn't remember any other music in the game. I remember the game took place in mostly atmospheric music and, ambience. But as you'll hear, no, and I'm glad I was wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of fights that still take place in ambient noise, and at those points the game does feel pretty hollow. When there is actual music, it's like really, really good. Granted, there are exactly 8 music tracks in the game, and they do get heavily reused, but for what there is, the music is really solid.
But I think I've beat around the bush long enough. Let's actually talk about how you play Animal Boxing. Despite owning this game and buying it new, I couldn't tell you who made the account Frogger, so I'm just gonna delete that one. Before we're able to start, we can customize our boxer. We'll be able to see them in little cutscenes and even on the results screen. There are a decent amount of options, which is really nice. You can make your boxer look like you, or not. A couple of hats seem to have the hair color change, which seems like an oversight, but oh well, moving on. The game starts in the tutorial cup, which teaches you all the different kinds of punches you have. Jabs, which are done by tapping the screen. You have uppercuts, which are done by sliding the stylus up. You have hooks, which are done by sliding the stylus left or right. And lastly, you have charge punches, which are done by holding the screen. I don't really find that one particularly very useful. That isn't all you can do. You can dodge left and right by using the A and Y face buttons, or the left and right on the D-pad. Down on the D-pad, or X, will also allow you to pull up your gloves and block punches, with the downside being that you only mitigate the damage. As a boxer, there are chocolate bars that will fly up on screen, which you can click to regain some health. As a kid, I thought they looked more like a towel and a water bottle, but according to the instruction manual, that is what they are supposed to be, and I would never know that because I would never read. Lastly, there are chili peppers, which charge your rage meter. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about what's on the top screen, or I guess in this case, the bottom screen. As you fight, fire will cover more and more of your half of the bottom screen, and when it's completely engulfed, you get rage, which for a short time, your punches do more damage. The opponent also has this ability, so it's not entirely specific to you. Neither the chili pepper nor the chocolate bar are particularly hard to grab, and they always appear in the same spot. I do kind of wish they were on screen for less time, or could appear more randomly on the screen to make things a little bit more chaotic, but I digress. It's a pretty simple control scheme, but for a boxing game, it works out well. I do have a couple gripes though. The hit detection feels a little off. There were times where I feel like I clearly hit my opponent, and instead, I just didn't, I missed. Animal boxers also get this pretty unfair dodge that they can perform that you cannot. It's something that you get used to as you play, and it's not like the game is super hard where landing every hit is completely necessary. Now that we know how to play, let's move on to the boxers themselves. You have horses and chameleons, orcas, roosters. Pretty much if there's a cool animal that you can name, there's a good chance that you can fight it. With nearly 50 different boxers to fight, that should mean that there's plenty of content. I am a little sad to report that every animal feels exactly the same to fight. The back of the box claims that they all fight differently, but personally, I couldn't feel it. At least they all have unique defeat animations. Since the boxers all feel the same, the game is pretty repetitive. In the game's championship mode, or the main game mode, the game makes you fight 5 boxers in a row before moving to the next cup. Do that for 24 cups, and you're done. Credits. The only thing that I feel changes is that the amount of damage your punches do is lessened as you go, or at least it feels that way. The game reuses the same few locales, many of the fighters, and the music all get reused throughout gameplay. The game, at most, probably takes a couple hours to beat, but it generally feels like I was playing the game for like 20 hours. The only other things to do would be the versus animal mode, which allows you to fight any boxer you've already faced in the championship mode one-on-one. Lastly, there is a versus human mode, where you can fight another player. But since I don't own 2 copies of the game, I couldn't try it out for myself. If you want to try the multiplayer nowadays, it wouldn't be too hard. The game is decently rare, but there's also no demand, so the game hovers around the $10 mark, according to price charting, at the time of making this video. The game also got re-released on DSiWare in 2012, but as far as I can tell, the cart version and the DSiWare version can't connect, despite being practically the same game.
And that's everything that Animal Boxing has to offer. The DS was known for having many games that I would consider precursors to modern-day mobile games. Just short, simple experiences that you weren't really meant to blast through in a couple of days, more over a couple of months. You had a lot of developers trying to do something unique, and at times, weird game concepts that really weren't seen again, either because they were really tied to the DS hardware, or because they didn't really do all too hot. This meant you had a lot of unique games fighting for your attention, like Animal Boxing. When a game comes out with no fanfare, no pre-established franchise, no pre-established developer or publisher, and not even a commercial, it's bound to get lost in the sea that is the DS library. But despite that, even within a game as obscure as Animal Boxing, I was surprised to find any kind of fan base. I found a game that was a fan game that was in development, but it seems like development has stopped. I found a full game playthrough that ended with an interview with the lead programmer. I won't dwell on this interview, but if you want to see it, I'll link it in the description. One thing that was mentioned was that the game was developed by 3 people over the course of 9 to 10 months, which is impressive, don't get me wrong. That is not a lot of time to make a full functional game, and as far as I could tell, there weren't any glitches or bugs or anything. It worked really, really well. Hell, even the publisher, Akoni Studios, was happy to answer a question that I had about Animal Boxing in the process of making this video. It's clear that there was a lot of love put into this game, and it is generally impressive that they were able to get it out in time. Even though I didn't like the game, it's clear that some did. And I think it's clear that the game had a lot of love put into it, from the game being proudly put on the company website, to the high-quality cover art. Hell, the manual is even in full color. It's clear that the team was passionate about Animal Boxing, and I would have loved to see what would have happened if the team had the time they needed to perfect the game as they wanted. But as it stands, it's an okay game that I personally didn't care for. However, just because I didn't care about it doesn't mean I don't think the concept could work. I think the concept actually could work really, really well. I highly recommend that if the game looks interesting to you, that you pick up Animal Boxing. Heck, support Akoni Studios' other work, Enraged Red Ogre, which comes out soon, and I'll leave a link for it in the description. But until next time, I'll be busy not reading. 'Cause I'm not a nerd, okay?